What up, and welcome to the Week 10 Fantasy Flex Props podcast presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Just hanging out. How about you?
Chilling. We had a pretty epic Tuesday. We can't get into all that, but yeah, shenanigans. So we're trying to recover, and it's been a day or so since. So now it's Thursday, so almost back to 100%. But
Yes.
we got some Sunday night showdown to talk about, the Chiefs and the Raiders. We got some and some props to get into. So let's get to it. Let's start with that Sunday night showdown slate. The Chiefs are going to Vegas. They're 2.5-point favorites. The total is 52.5. So we're expecting a high-scoring, close game. Sean, you nailed. I think it was Tyreek in the captain spot on the last primetime Chiefs game. Who do you like this time?
Yeah, I think Tyreek makes sense again. He obviously has the highest ceiling out of anybody in this game. And I'm with you. I think Patrick Mahomes breaks out this game. I offered you the prop 278.5. I think it was. I think he'll be closer to 300, if not way over in this matchup. So, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill are obviously in play. It's really hard to find anybody outside of those two. So I think everything's going to go to those guys. I think it's getting that right. So, but I think I'm going Tyreek Hill. I think if you want to go with the Raiders, Darren Waller or Hunter Renfrow, either one of those guys could end up getting, 8+ catches in this game as well. So if you want to get sneaky, I don't think you go wrong with either one of those guys. I think Derek Carr, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up for throwing over 300 yards as well. So a lot to choose from, but I think the contrarian play would be to go with a Waller or Renfrow here. How about you?
Yeah, I like Kelce. I think, I was talking to Stuckey about Gus Bradley, and he did make the good point that Bradley was actually one of the coordinators that laid the blueprint for how to slow down Mahomes back when he was with the Chargers. They did play a lot of deep safeties and just make him throw underneath. So that's good for the Chiefs receivers. So I like Tyreek, obviously like Kelce again, just because I think, especially on a full PPR, that they're going to need more receptions than usual to get their yardage. I still think they get a bunch of yardage. It's still zone coverage. There's going to be a zone heavy look for the Raiders, but I like the receivers. I think a contrarian play on the other side is Josh Jacobs. The Raiders, coming out of that game against the Giants, one of the talking points in Vegas was they ran the ball really well, but they didn't run it enough. And Jacobs had, his best game in terms of rushing efficiency. So, this Chiefs team, they invite the run. And whether it's kind of a fallacy or not, I think a lot of coaches believe, you want to kind of play keep away against this team, keep the offense off the field. So the Chiefs are 29th in run defense, DVOA. I think Jacobs could push for 20 carries here and be efficient with those carries. And we've already seen him, get a lot of work in the red zone. So that's a contrarian play where, the Chiefs are favored on the road. The Raiders are home dogs, but we've seen the Chiefs struggle. If the Raiders can control this game, or at least keep it to a one-score game, I think Jacobs is going to get a lot of work from wire to wire. So I like him as a contrarian play as well.
Yeah, I do like that. And, one of the knocks, about Josh Jacobs in fantasy, especially on a site like DK, is the lack of receptions, but he's had 3 or more catches in 4 out of the past 5 games. So, I mean, obviously that's a good sign. Why do you think that is? Is that Gruden being gone? What do you think changed where they're using him more as a pass catching back?
I think it's just
being
because...
good. He should have always been, getting passes, but
I think there's a more material reason. You have Brian Edwards out there, who's basically like a non-entity most weeks,
yeah.
right, for running routes. Especially, he doesn't really do anything against zone coverage. He's one of those guys that if you have him singled up, maybe you throw a contested ball to him, but he's not really separating, and he's too, he's still kind of young, doesn't really, I guess, know how to find those soft spots. So Carr, usually it's like Waller, Renfrow, dump it down. That's it.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the reads. And then when Ruggs there, obviously you take some shots with him against man coverage as well. But I think the way the teams are playing the Raiders here, it just kind of lends itself to, and Carr is one of those quarterbacks. Like, he doesn't like to hold it too long. He's been a lot better over these last few years at getting the ball down the field, but he's still going to be very decisive. If it's not there, he's going to dump it down. So yeah, that's probably why they got Drake. It's just that Jacobs has been outplaying Drake for most of the year. So yeah, I expect it to continue. All right. What about cheat codes? Who do you like on the lower end of the salary spectrum in this game?
Well, like I said, it's for the Chiefs, it's Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey, obviously God tier. And then it, at the bottom, it seems like Demarcus Robinson, Josh Gordon, Byron Pringle, they're all kind of like sharing the Demarcus Robinson role of just running around the field, not getting targets. And Mecole Hardman is like in the middle. Like he's not quite that tier, and he's obviously not the God tier. So I'm going to have to stick with Mecole Hardman as being my cheat code. He's still a threat to score from anywhere on the field. Despite, Josh Gordon getting more playing time, Hardman's still running, around 65 to 70% routes run. So he's on the field. That's all we ask for with him. So it's Hardman for me. And now on the other side, I guess we don't know yet if Deshaun Jackson is playing, but obviously if he's suiting up and he's active, he's just a walking cheat code because all he needs is one catch. And that's what I said for Monday Night Football with, Marquise Goodwin and James Washington. They each had just one catch only, I think, and still put up 50 yards. So Deshaun Jackson falls in that bucket. He's perfect for a showdown slate. So if he's active, he'll be my cheat code on the Raiders side.
Yeah, I like, going kind of correlated with my Josh Jacobs play. I really like the Raiders defense. The Chiefs, 20.5% turnover rate per drive. They're turning over essentially one every 5 drives. So, again, I think you still have to target this Chiefs team against with opposing defenses. It seems weird, and obviously they could always break out for like a 30-point game and not really give up much. But right now they're still trying to figure things out. The Raiders defense seems disgusting, but they can get pressure, with that front four. So I like the Raiders D, and Gus Bradley has had some success against Mahomes in the past. So I expect another couple of turnovers here for the Raiders. So I like them, obviously Djax as well. Mm-hmm. And I think looking at maybe a bounce back for Byron Pringle here. Gordon is another guy. His playing time's kind of been going up, but Pringle, since Gordon was acquired, Pringle's routes run have gone 32% per dropback, 42%, 48%, 44%, and then 63% last week. So Pringle's
with no targets.
No targets, but all you need is one, right?
Yeah,
all you need
exactly.
is one here. You kind of called it with Marquise Goodwin the other night and James Washington. And Pringle, 63% routes run. That's pretty high for a guy that's kind of in that mix of like, the wide receiver 3, 4, 5 range. So, something to watch out for here. Cause I agree. I think Demarcus Robinson's really the guy that's trending down. 85% routes run 3 weeks ago, 37% 2 weeks ago, 24% last week. So he's the guy that's really been kind of losing out here, whether it's to Pringle or Josh Gordon. It seems like the Chiefs are looking for an upgrade there. Remember, they didn't necessarily rush to bring him back. He kind of tested free agency and didn't find anything, and then they re-signed him.
Yeah, and I think really scraping at the bottom of the barrel here. Foster Moreau, the backup tight end play. One of the faults I thought, following Henry Ruggs, the tragedy, I thought they might run more 2 tight end sets. They opened up the season doing so. Foster Moreau was averaging 35 to 45% routes run. Really talented for a backup tight end, and he stepped up when Waller was out, but he only ran 15% last week. So who knows? Maybe they run more 2 tight end sets. But he's the kind of guy that could sneak in 2 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown. So for a showdown slate, I like sprinkling in just a couple shares of a guy like Moreau, just in case.
Oh yeah, you gotta get some Moreau, some Blake Bell in here. It seems like every showdown slate, one of those backup tight ends, does something.
And I was this close to saying Jimmy Graham last week, but I was like, I can't bring myself to do it, and I regretted that. So I just had to throw Moreau out there.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, we saw it a couple of weeks ago. We didn't see it last week, but you can never predict Andy Reid's usage. So Derek Gore, I mean, we've seen him have a game where he pretty much split the work with Williams, and then a game where he was the clear backup, and even McKinnon was a little more involved. But don't forget about Gore either, because if they want to run the football, especially in the red zone, it seems like they trust Gore as well. So a lot of options here, but that's how I'm kind of looking at it. I'd say Raiders D for me is probably going to be the one I kind of go with the most, just because I think it'll be lowly rostered. All right, let's get into our props. We do 5 props each: a quarterback, 2 running back, and 2 receivers. The lines are courtesy of Prize Picks, who presents the Week 10 Action Network Fantasy Flex Props podcast. So let's get to it, Sean. Who is your quarterback prop for Week 10?
So I took Trevor Siemian under 220 earlier. That has dropped to 210 So my new favorite prop at quarterback is Mac Jones over 220 passing yards against the Browns. We don't even know what running backs are going to be active for the Patriots this week. So they could be really thin at running back, which would force, the Patriots into more of a pass heavy game script. But I think they might be doing that anyway, because this Browns defense is more of a pass funnel one. They rank 19th in DVOA against the pass and 5th versus the run. So this is why I took the over for Joe Burrow last week. He crushed that. So I think, the Patriots tend to be really savvy, no coincidence, Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and game planning for their opponent. So I think with this matchup, they're going to lean on Mac Jones a bit more. So, I'm projecting him above 240 here. So I think this is about 20 yards off. So I love the over 220.5 yards for Mac Jones here.
Yeah, we've talked about it. You want to target Mac Jones, not in the games where you expect positive game script, but in the games where they might have some trouble. And I expect the Browns to win this game. I think the Browns have the edge on both sides of the ball here against the Patriots. So, obviously Mac Jones, I think Belichick will worry about the pressure. Cleveland is number 2 in pressure rate, but I agree. Cleveland's been stout on run defense. I think they're 6th in DVOA. And without your running backs, you just don't have that physical element if you're going to be missing Stevenson and Harris. So I think Jones gets it. I think it'll be ugly. I don't think it'll be like an efficient 240 yards or whatever it is. But I do think he would just have to get there, because I expect the Browns to be able to control this game. All right. For my prop, you graciously gave it up. I'm going banging. Trevor Siemian under 210.5. Yeah. Like, come on here. Like I have Trevor Siemian not even playing the full game. We don't even know right now if he's going to start or how long he's going to play. Because yes, Trevor Siemian wasn't the issue in the Saints game against the Falcons. His receivers were, I know you saw the one where Deontay Harris just completely slipped and it was like a wide open conversion. Big fish Adam Troutman dropped a couple of balls. So it's just been, it wasn't on Siemian, and Sean Payton said this before, the coverages change when we get Taysom Hill in the game. Like, you can't do as much man coverage because you're scared of him running. So another one of the issues with the Falcons is they were one of the worst defenses coming into the game, and they just played a lot of man coverage and locked up the Saints receivers. And so I think Sean Payton, whether it's, with the starter or just if they struggle early in the game, because we know the Titans always seem to find a way to hang in these games regardless and surprise people. I think he's going to have to make a change. So this is kind of like that low hanging fruit, like Sam Darnold a few weeks ago, where it's like he either could struggle for efficiency as is, or he could just straight up get pulled from the game. So I still like Siemian under to 10.5. I have him at 153. So.
Nice. Yeah. I still love the under. It's just one of those things where if you can't even project the guy to play the full game, which is rare for a quarterback, the lower floor. And I wonder if Alvin Kamara ends up missing for this game. It makes even more sense to use Taysom Hill. And use Taysom Hill and Mark Ingram. That's a pretty powerful combo. So just all signs point to Trevor Siemian going under this.
All right, what are we doing for running back?
So I'm sticking with Zeke Elliott over 65.5 rushing yards this week. I took the same exact prop last week and it failed miserably. But then again, I thought the Cowboys were going to beat the Broncos. But once they went down by 30 points and Zeke was dealing with a knee injury, I knew this was toast. But he was able to come in and he got carries down multiple scores late in the fourth. So I don't think they're too worried about this knee injury, but certainly something to monitor. But against this Falcons defense that ranks 27th against the run in DVOA, he doesn't even need the full complement of snaps or even need to be 100% healthy to clear this prop. So I'm projecting him 70.5 yards, and I'm factoring him to be limited earlier in the week. So if he's closer to 100% come game day, my prop's only going to go up for this, or my projection is going to go up for this. So I want to lock this in early because I think this entire Cowboys offense is going to have a bounce back game this week. So love the over 65.5 yards for Zeke this week.
Yeah, I figured it could get a little wonky with the Cowboys last. Where they come into the game 7-0 against the spread. The Broncos are one of my picks for last week, but this week I do like the Cowboys to bounce back. So I do like it. I think this is where you kind of buy in to Zeke here. And remember, you gotta have Zeke in the game to keep defenses honest, so you can hit Malik Turner over the top.
Oh yeah, screw CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper.
Right,
Michael Gallup's back. Just funnel targets to Malik Turner, please.
You know it. All right. For my running back prop, I'm going with Jordan Howard under 40.5 rushing yards. Last week, I gave you Boston Scott under 44.5, I think it was. That hit even in a great matchup. And the reason is we have no idea how this team is going to split carries from week to week. You know, they're giving Kenneth Gainwell goal line carries. Howard comes off the practice squad, and he's essentially their top back 2 weeks in a row. But I think the Howard, game plan last week, because a lot of people thought Boston Scott was going to be the guy. And I expressed some pessimism of him, both in terms of, waiver pickup and in terms of, his prop and DFS and all that stuff. And now I think now that we're, books aren't even posting props for Boston Scott now, but we get Jordan Howard. So now we're going to take that and go under that because the Chargers were 32nd dead last in run defense DVOA. So that's a team that you want to have a power run game. You just want to keep wearing them down. But this Broncos team, I mean, what did they hold Zeke to last game? Like 16 yards or something?
50.
Like 50 yards.
Because he was getting garbage carries down 30.
Right. Yeah, he had like 16 at one point. The Broncos, like they had some issues earlier in the year. They lost, a couple of their key run stopping linebackers, but I still don't think, you're going to go at this Broncos team, this physical team in Mile High and say, oh yeah, we're going to run it down their throat with Jordan Howard. Like that's just not going to fly. We still can't trust this Eagles team to be a run heavy team. We kind of know that what's their MO has been to throw the ball. They had 2 really good matchups to run, 44-6 romp of the Lions, and then they faced the worst run defense in the league. So now you're talking about Jordan Howard in a game that, I mean, they're underdogs, maybe they win, maybe they lose the game, but I don't think we could trust the Eagles to run, to hand off more than like 20 times, if that. They've been averaging under that for the year. So I still think he's splitting carries 3 ways, and we can't trust this. And even if he gets, 15 carries, he's not a lot to go over. We've seen that throughout his career. He can be very inefficient at times. So under 40.5 for Jordan Howard.
Yeah, love this call. And, in fantasy, he's a touchdown dependent, low end RB3 flex. So he's one of those guys that just has a really low floor, especially with, still a 3-way running back by committee. But how do you think Miles Sanders feels where he gets hurt? All of a sudden the Eagles turn into the, 2019 Baltimore Ravens. Like it's got to feel good, right?
Right. Yeah. It's, I mean, he had that good drive, I guess it was against the Bucks. Remember where like all of a sudden they started handing him the ball. So I think it was kind of in motion a little bit. They realized they were kind of skewing too heavy, but
right when he gets hurt, they finally decide to
they get the great matchups. Yeah, they get the matchups, and but that's the thing. You got to kind of take it as it comes. And every time we see something with this Eagles backfield, you can't trust it. You fade that, and then like next week we might be talking about Kenneth Gainwell unders or something. So let's keep it moving. Who do you like for your second running back prop?
So I'm sticking with Jonathan Taylor over 85.5 rushing yards against the Jaguars. Just make life easy on yourself. Whenever the Colts play a really bad team, just take the over on Jonathan Taylor's rushing prop and thank me later. He had 146 rushing yards against the Texans. Then he had 172 yards against the Jets last week. Now he faces the Jaguars. Just fill in the blank. I'm projecting closer to 92.5 rushing yards, and that still feels a little low. Because, they finally got their offensive line back healthy just a couple games ago. So Jonathan Taylor is firing on all cylinders. They made Marlon Mack inactive last week. So he's just going to get a ton of carries here. Last week, I liked the Najee Harris rushing yards over just because I liked him getting, 22, 23 carries. Unfortunately, he wasn't efficient enough to go over the prop. But with Jonathan Taylor, there's no question when it comes to efficiency. So I feel better about this prop than I did Najee last week. But yeah, love Taylor over 85.5 rushing yards here.
Yeah, I'm around 87, so I'm over this as well, just barely. I don't think he'll be quite as efficient. I do think the Jaguars have a good run defense. They're number 2 in the league at limiting explosive run plays, so I think Taylor's going to have to get it, kind of churn it out. But I still haven't projected for 5 yards per carry, which is kind of Nick Chubb level. So I don't disagree here.
This is actually the first week I have Taylor projected over 5 carries. So
5 yards a carry.
I'm usually with you when it comes to like being careful about projecting running backs over 5 yards a carry, but Jonathan Taylor has joined that club this week.
For me, I'm going with Dalvin Cook over 89.5 rushing yards. He's averaging 92 on the season. In the games that he's played more than half the snaps, he's gone over this in 3 out of 5. With a median of 110. So I haven't projected over 100 yards. This number has gone up, I think, 4 yards since we last talked about it. And I'm still banging the over here. This is the league's worst defense. It's the Chargers. Cook, I know he's going through some legal situations, but doesn't look like it's going to affect his availability at all for week 10. And this Vikings team, you know what they do when their backs are against the wall, they want to run the football. Mike Zimmer is great coming off a loss, multi-game losing streak. He's 15-5 against the spread. So the Vikings could actually surprise people and jump out to a lead. Or that's not surprising. They always jump out to a lead, but they may actually be able to. Yeah, right. They may actually be able to control this game wire to wire. But either way, I think Cook, he's going to be efficient regardless of the circumstances. I don't see the Chargers running away with it in this spot. So Dalvin Cook over 89.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, love it. And earlier in the week when you were touting Dalvin Cook, that was before I did my deep dive when it comes to my projections. Yesterday was my deep dive, and I added 2 carries and 10 yards basically to his rushing prop. So I'm right there with you now. He's up to 93 rushing yards. Still love the over. He's right there with Taylor. I had him like my running back 5, I think, and you're giving me crap. He's up to running back.
What?
That was, remember that I told you the famous quote by Abraham Lincoln, never judge a man by his fancy projections on a Tuesday morning.
Right.
But it's Thursday now. So my projections are good to go. Dalvin Cook is my running back 2. Jonathan Taylor's my running back 1. So all is right with the world. And I'm with you on this Cook over finally.
All right. Let's go to receiver. Who's your first receiver prop for week number 10?
So I'm going with Russell Gage under 50.5 receiving yards against Cowboys. Russell Gage is typically a high floor type of receiver, but he's only played 5 games this year, and he's had 0 catches in 2 of those. So he's been surprisingly volatile this season. He's a low ADOT kind of player. His ADOT 7.7. His yards per catch is 9.9. So even if he does end up getting 5 to 6 catches here, he could still go under. So I'm projecting him for 4.5 catches here. Last week he benefited from Kyle Pitts, dropping a couple deep balls. And then, after that, Russell Gage got a catch or 2 from there. I was watching quite a bit of that game. So I think, Russell Gage had a ceiling game last week and still barely cleared this number. So I think he's going to regress a bit here. I'm expecting a massive game from Kyle Pitts. Cordell Patterson is always going to be involved in the passing attack. So I think Gage is going to cool off a bit here. And I'm projecting him closer to 43.5 yards. So like the under here.
So you're saying Russell Gage is going to fail to get over, just like he failed to get over the defender on that ill-advised hurdle. Oh, did you see that? Did you see that hurdle where he just jumped into nothing?
Yeah, that's Russell Gage in a nutshell.
Yeah, I have him about 42 yards. I have him 4.8 catches, but just not like his yards per catch, as you mentioned, is under 10 in my model as well. So I think this is a spot where he'll probably catch 4 or 5 balls, but will he get anything downfield? I don't know. All right, let's go to mine. I'm still going Donovan Peoples-Jones under 45.5 receiving yards. I just think this is way too high. Even without Odell Beckham, he's had 39 or less in 4 of the 7 games. I'm projecting him for about 35 receiving yards here. This is you're going against first of all, you're going against the Bill Belichick defense. Second of all, we'll see what happens with Chubb, but either way, the Browns are going to run the ball regardless of what back they have in the backfield. So I don't think like all of the situations going on with Cleveland all of a sudden make Donovan Peoples-Jones this like guy that's going to get close to 50 yards receiving. He's been a kind of a volatile guy. Yes, he could break this on 1 catch, but he could also go a whole game without being targeted. So Donovan Peoples-Jones under 45.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He does have that upside, but he still has a really low floor. And when I was doing my deep dive projections process yesterday, I was kind of scared when you took this prop because Anthony Schwartz is running 70% of the routes run now, which means more targets are going to be funneled elsewhere. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, like just they Jarvis Landry is a target hog, and they have the 3-headed tight end monster. Like there's so many outs for this prop where, I think Peoples-Jones has to get like a long catch to clear this prop. And, defenses by now know who he is and can game plan for that. There aren't many things that you need to do to stop the Browns at this point. So the more I looked into it, I'm right there with you. I'm projecting his mean projection is 36. So, his median is going to be closer to 30. So this prop is a good, like 15 yards off.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, last week, the routes run with Odell Beckham out were Jarvis Landry, 83%, Schwartz 70%, Peoples-Jones
geez.
65%. So Peoples-Jones
Right.
was actually, and he's 66% for the year. So I mean, that's kind of, you're gonna get, maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of the snaps for Peoples-Jones, and he's gonna have to catch like some deep ones to kind of go over this. He's not gonna be a guy that catches like 6 balls.
No way. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, but Rashard Higgins only ran around 4% of the time. Don't know if that was injury related or they're just really trying to get Schwartz playing time. But if Higgins goes back up to 50% and Schwartz is back down to 40, that's only going to benefit this market even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of game plan specific. The week before, Higgins went 64%, Schwartz 11. So I think, Peoples-Jones is the clear number 2 now. Like, he's not. Yes. I'm not saying he's going to be like benched, but this number is just way too high because his role hasn't changed. Regardless of what happens with OBJ.
Yeah, the best was when we were sweating the Peoples-Jones prop when we just needed him to play one snap.
Oh yeah, for action. Yeah, because we banged his unders. Yeah.
I knew he was going to go under that even if he played the whole game, but he tweaked his groin, and we needed him to play one snap so the prop would count.
So tilting. All right, where are you going with your second receiver and prop for week 10?
So I love this one. It's Deontay Johnson over 65.5 receiving yards against the Lions. He's gone over this in 5 of 7 games this year. The Lions don't have anyone who can stop him. Deontay Johnson is one of those high floor players where I'm comfortable taking us over. And Chase Claypool's banged up, so we don't even know if he's going to play. If Chase Claypool's ruled out, this prop's going to go up, closer to 80. Even if Claypool plays, I think Deontay Johnson, there's a lock to go over this. I'm projecting it closer to, 73, 75.5 yards. And like I said, I don't mind betting the over on someone like Deontay just because he has such a high floor. He's going to see targets regardless of, even if the Steelers get up early, I'm not too worried about it. He's still going to get his. So love is over this week at 65.5.
Yeah, it's my understanding that Claypool's week to week. Like, I know he's not officially ruled out, but I'm already projecting him for zeros across the board. Like, I didn't think he's playing. So I think this is looking good. And yeah, the Lions, their issue is they just, they can't on the perimeter. They just don't have enough talent at corner or in the secondary to really defend some of these perimeter receivers. So Deontay Johnson is my wide receiver 6. Heading into the week. And it's, like you said, it's already Thursday. So I don't think he's going to move too much. I have him around 77.5 for a median, 83 for a mean. So,
oh my God. So I realized, I'm not with you on Chase Claypool yet. I still have him in there.
Okay.
And Deontay Johnson's my wide receiver 5. So I'm terrified to see what happens when I take out Chase Claypool.
He's going to be like above Devontae Adams.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, I'm worried. So I'm going to leave Chase Claypool in there for now.
Hey, you just got to bump up Cody White and see what happens. All right. For my second receiver prop, I'm going with Jamison Crowder under 49.5 receiving yards against the Buffalo Bills. Crowder's averaging 48 yards per game, but his median is 38. And he's been under this number in 60% or 3 out of his 5 games this season. This is one of those things where, number one, you have Corey Davis coming back. The Jets have been using a lot of 4 receiver sets lately, which kind of muddies up the target waters. It kind of spreads the ball around. And on top of that, Crowder could get 4, 5, 6 catches and still fall short of this number because his average depth of target this season is just 5.1. That would be a career low for Crowder. Just for context, last year it was 7.6, and the year before, his first year on the Jets, it was 7.3. So they're using him even closer to the line of scrimmage this year. They have other receivers like Corey Davis, Keelan Cole, Elijah Moore is coming on into his own, which is going to cut into Crowder's, I think, snaps as well. So I think Crowder's treading down, and this is a tough Bills defense. Everyone's talking about how they lost the game to the Jags last week, but this team still ranks number 1 in pass defense DVOA, 6th against number 1 receivers, 2 against number 2 receivers, and 4 against non-number 1 and number 2 receivers. So it's just really tough, to be productive as a wide receiver against this Buffalo Bill defense. So love the Crowder under 49.5.
Yeah, I was nice enough to let you have this one and the Simeon prop. I love this one as well. Basically what you said, like whenever it comes to projecting the Jets wide receivers, it's so crowded right now. that it's hard to give Crowder anything more than 5 catches. I agree that, he's probably going to lead the team in targets, but Corey Davis coming back, Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims is still, really talented, and Keelan
I think
Cole.
he's on a COVID list. I think Mims might be on a COVID list.
Oh, really? It doesn't matter
be
because
out,
they have
yeah.
other. Yeah,
Braxton Berrios, Jeff Smith.
Berrios can step up. Keelan Cole, the coaching staff still loves Keelan Cole, so he just has to fight for playing time. Michael Carter and Ty Johnson, we'll see their targets as well. So there's just a lot of targets to go around. So yeah, I love Crowder under 49.5. I wouldn't touch his receiving prop, like if it's 4.5 or even 5.
Receptions,
I wouldn't touch it because he could go over that. But like you said, he could catch 6 balls and still go under this. So that's why I like the under here as well.
Yeah, I have him for a mean. I have him 5.3 for 46 yards. So then his median is about 5 catches for 40. So
yeah,
I like him to go well under this number. That is going to wrap it up for our Week 10 props on the Week 10 Fantasy Flex Props Pod presented by Prize Picks. To recap, Sean is going Matt Jones over 220.5 passing yards, Ezekiel Elliott over 65.5 rushing yards, Jonathan Taylor over 85.5 rushing yards, Russell Gage under 50.5 receiving yards, and Deontay Johnson over 65.5 receiving yards. I am going with Trevor Siemian under 210.5 passing yards, Jordan Howard under 40.5 rushing yards, Dalvin Cook over 89.5 rushing yards, Donovan Peoples-Jones under 45.5 receiving yards, and Jamison Crowder under 49.5 receiving yards. That's going to do it for the pod. You can find Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker and me on Twitter at Chris Raybon. You can find us at those same handles in the free award-winning Action Network app, where you can follow, and you can find our DFS content, tools, and models at FantasyLabs.com. Good luck this weekend. Let's get this shmoney.